A political icon turned 73 today, and he just joined us with revelations that will shake Washington to its core. Roger Stone, the man who helped put Nixon, Reagan, and Trump in the White House, exposed a constitutional crisis that could bring down the entire Federal Reserve System. He revealed how Trump's move to fire Lisa Cook for mortgage fraud creates an inescapable legal trap. Stone also dropped bombshells about Adam Schiff's identical fraud scheme, exposed Thailand's betrayal of Trump's peace deals, and explained why Jerome Powell's Fed renovation scandal proves the entire system is rotten to the core. You're about to witness the exclusive interview that will have the establishment in full panic mode, so keep on watching. Now, Roger Stone just turned 73, and like Chuck Norris at 84, he is proving age is just a number when you're fighting for America. And speaking of Chuck Norris, have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary martial artist? I recently saw a video he made. I was shocked. He's in his 80s, he's still kicking butt and staying active. What's even more shocking is he is stronger. He can work out longer and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing it, also feels better than ever. Now, Chuck made a special video that explains everything, so make sure you watch it at chuckdefense.com/next. You'll find it linked down below. And without further ado, let's go to my interview with Roger Stone. Today's a very special day. It's Roger Stone's 73rd birthday, and we have the political icon himself joining us for an explosive interview that only he could deliver. Roger Stone, the man who helped put Nixon, Reagan, and Trump in the White House, the strategist behind 700 campaigns over 45 years, the New York Times bestselling author who exposed LBJ killing Kennedy, the Bush crime family, and the Clintons' war on women, the survivor of the Russia hoax persecution, who President Trump rightfully pardoned. Roger's here with explosive revelations about the deep state's war on Trump, a war being fought on two fronts. At home, President Trump just triggered a constitutional crisis by moving to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, forcing America to confront whether we're run by elected leaders or unelected bankers. Nancy Pelosi is panicked. Her response proves they know Trump has them cornered. And abroad, while Trump brokers peace deals, supposed allies like Thailand stab him in the back, violating his Cambodia ceasefire, while secretly buying submarines from China. When Cambodia went to Z for help, well, they got empty photo ops while Trump delivered real results through strength. It's all connected. The same forces undermining Trump's economic sovereignty are enabling our enemies overseas. Happy birthday, Roger Stone. Welcome back to the Next News Network.
Gary, great to be with you again. There is a certain irony that my birthday falls on August 27th, the exact same day as Lyndon Baines Johnson, the most epically corrupt and I think mentally unbalanced president in U.S. history. And you're right, using eyewitness evidence, fingerprint evidence, and deep Texas politics, I prove in my very first book, which became a New York Times bestseller, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, that he was the ringleader of a, I hate this word, conspiracy that involved the Central Intelligence Agency, organized crime, big Texas oil, and certain other financial interests to kill John F. Kennedy.
Well, it all lines up. I've always considered him to be at the top of the list. Your book really just paints the picture, connects all those dots. I do want to talk about Trump's move to fire the Fed Governor Lisa Cook. It seems to create a constitutional checkmate. Either the president has the authority to remove her or the Fed itself is unconstitutional. How do you see this playing out?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So when Bill Pulte, who's the head of the Federal Home Finance Agency, moves to enforce the law, he's accused of targeting. Yet when they make up a completely fake narrative about Russia to try to take down Donald Trump, why, that's viewed as a legitimate investigation. I think the facts here are very clear. The President of the United States has the authority to fire a federal board governor for cause. What is cause? Cause in this case is egregious mortgage fraud. In this case, Lisa Cook claimed that her home in Ann Arbor, Michigan was her principal legal residence. That means she got a state tax break, she got a lower mortgage rate, and a lower insurance rate. And then, Gary, just 2 weeks later, she claimed that her home outside of Atlanta was her principal legal residence. Once again, she got a state tax break, she got a lower mortgage rate, and she got a lower insurance rate. Now, this is what is known as mortgage fraud. Literally, thousands of people are referred by the housing officials at FHFA to the Justice Department for this crime every single year. You don't hear about it because they're not prominent. They're not well known. But the elites, like Lisa Cook, like Jerome Powell, they seem to think that they're above the law. Also caught in this same net, as you know, is Adam Shifty Schiff, the single greatest hustler, huckster, con man, and fraudster in the history of the U.S. Congress. This is a guy who told us repeatedly that he had seen more than circumstantial evidence of Russian collusion with President Trump's 2016 campaign. And of course, he never produced anything of the kind because, as we now know, thanks to the courage of Tulsi Gabbard and the direction of President Donald Trump, all of the documents have been declassified, at least most of them. I think there are more bombshells to come, which prove definitively that this was a seditious conspiracy that was born in the Oval Office at the direction of Barack Obama with the assistance of Vice President Joe Biden. It involved the National Security Advisor, Susan Rice. It involved the FBI Director, James Comey. It involved one of the principal orchestrators of this charade, CIA Director John Brennan, but also culpable are Special Counsel Robert Mueller, the de facto head of the Mueller witch hunt, Andrew Weissman, probably the single most corrupt federal prosecutor in U.S. history, as well as others, including James Clapper, who was then the Director of National Intelligence. This is not conjecture. This is not investigative reporting. They are busted by their own words in their own classified documents and emails. And the most interesting thing to me, Gary, is Hillary Clinton approved the entire ruse from the beginning. Yes. It's there in black and white. One of her aides says HRC has approved. I think that stands for Hillary Rotten Clinton.
Okay, so
as a way to distract from her illegal email server.
Since you brought that up, Julia Smith was the one who who basically came up with this idea that Hillary Clinton then sold to Barack Obama. Now, a lot of our viewers, a lot of people think we're never going to see any accountability for any of these people. We did just see John Bolton get his house raided by the FBI. Some say that's one of the major big dominoes, the first dominoes to fall, sending a message across the bow to the deep state. But in the case of Julia Smith, as she was noted in that email as the inception point for that and the Russiagate scandal, do you think that maybe they'll just use her as a sacrificial lamb?
Well, my guess is once you start putting these people under pressure, once they start to have to appear in grand juries, not in Washington, D.C., but say in South Florida, because I think this was an ongoing seditious conspiracy. Now, I'm not an attorney, but I've talked to some very good attorneys who believe that this seditious conspiracy to engage in treason, to undo the results of the 2016 election, started in 2016, continued into 2017, continued all the way to the election of 2020, in which Tulsi Gabbard now tells us she's examining substantial evidence of fraud and irregularities in that election, continuing right up until 2023 and 4, when they raided Mar-a-Lago. What were they looking for? They were looking for these documents, the Crossfire Hurricane documents. They were looking for the documents that would prove their guilt. These are the documents that John Bolton talked President Trump out of declassifying in the brief period in which he was the national security advisor. These are the documents that I think they raided Mar-a-Lago to try to get back because they prove their guilt. These are the documents that Tulsi Gabbard has now declassified. So I think...
And even Devin Nunes has also made that same allegation.
That is true. But now I think you have absolute definitive proof in their own words. These aren't our documents. These are their documents. And therefore, I believe, based on my own sources, that there are already grand juries hearing testimony in Washington in New York, in South Florida, and I think there will be indictments. And then once you start talking to people, it's only a question of who rolls first. I mean, at his age, I don't think James Clapper, who, by the way, left government to go teach ethics at Vermont College, something rich about that.
Well, you broke the story about Brennan going to Austria, and then he went to Ireland. What's the story there? He's fleeing the country.
I think he knows that he's in deep trouble. I mean, first of all, this is a guy whose arrogance knows no bound. He's an admitted communist. He admitted that in a polygraph test. He said he voted for the Communist Party candidate for president. He said he was a member of the party. How does such a person become the head of our largest international intelligence agency? He is the same man who, as the CIA station chief in Riyadh, signed the visas for 4 of the men who they tell us attacked America on 9/11. John Guandolo, who's an entirely credible former FBI counterterrorism expert, says that Brennan converted to radical Islam, specifically to radical Wahhabism, when he was in Saudi. This is a guy who got caught red-handed spying, wiretapping, and spying and hacking a Senate committee that was investigating his use of illegal torture as the CIA director. So he has a storied history, and we now know, based on these documents, that he knew that the so-called Steele dossier, which was a report fabricated at the expense of Hillary Clinton, which alleged falsely that President Donald Trump had dallied with Russian prostitutes when visiting Moscow as a private businessman. He knew it was a fraud, yet he insisted on inserting it into Barack Obama's daily intelligence community assessment, although he tried to hide it in a footnote so no one would ever know, because they used it as their rationale, as their probable cause for the launching of Crossfire Hurricane, the counterintelligence operation designed to undo the 2016 election. They also used it as the rationale to appoint Robert Mueller to the witch hunt, which turned my life upside down, not to mention my good friend General Michael Flynn, not to mention, of course, President Donald Trump himself, Paul Manafort, Rudy Giuliani, and others.
George Papadopoulos, too. Yeah.
George Papadopoulos, among others, Carter Page. So they used the same fake report. And by the way, Hillary Clinton's campaign tried to disguise the payments for the Steele dossier as legal payments. They got caught. They paid a very substantial fine to the FEC. That's not as punitive as what they tried to do to Donald Trump, of course. But look, it's all out there for people to see. It can no longer be denied. What's funny is that now, when Lisa Cook is being held accountable for an obvious act of mortgage fraud, Adam Schiff, who claims that his condominium in Burbank is his principal legal residence, at the same time he claims his home in Potomac, Maryland is his principal legal residence. Again, getting a tax break in both states, getting a lower mortgage rate in both states, getting a lower insurance rate in both states. And when confronted, he says, "Oh, that's all made up. That's all made up." No, it's there. Any citizen, Gary, can go online. These documents are all public documents. These aren't secrets. The only thing that's made up is the Russian collusion. That was made up by Adam Schiff.
Okay, I want to get back to the Fed because I got this clip here of the Treasury Secretary, but you bring up Adam Schiff, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on the challenging of his pardon. Could he actually face an indictment, to challenge the pardon, challenge the auto pen? Could there be an entire new thread that could take down Adam Schiff all the way up to the auto pen scandal?
It depends very much, of course, on the actual wording of his pardon. So, for example, when Richard Nixon was pardoned by President Gerald Ford, first of all, that proves that one does not have to be charged with a crime in order to be pardoned, or in order to accept a pardon. There's some misunderstanding about that. But in that case, Richard Nixon was pardoned for any crime he committed or may have committed during the time that he was president. I don't know what the exact wording of Adam Schiff's pardon is, but as you point out, when he's charged, and I believe he will be charged with mortgage fraud, he will argue in court, I presume, that he's immune from prosecution because of the pardon. The government's response will be your pardon is not valid because it was not signed by the President of the United States. It was signed by an auto pen. Then I guess you'd have to bring Joe Biden into court to tell us what he remembered. Now, Joe Biden thinks he lives on Mars and thinks he's Henry VIII. So who knows what he might say in court.
All right. Since we're talking about the mortgage fraud, let's check in with the Treasury Secretary here. Because he's made some explosive demands about the Fed Governor Lisa Cook. Let's watch what he is calling for now.
Pressure on the Fed, and there are people like is putting undue pressure on the Fed, and there are people like President Trump and myself who think that if a Fed official committed mortgage fraud, that this should be examined, and that they shouldn't be serving as one of the nation's leading financial regulators. And what we haven't heard from Ms. Cook is we haven't heard her say, "I didn't do it." We haven't heard her say, "I didn't do it." She just keeps saying the president can't remove her. The other thing, too, that I have called in the recent past for an internal review of all the Fed's operations, and I've encouraged Chair Powell to do this on an internal basis before there is an external review. And this is the kind of thing that needs to be addressed, because the Fed is an unaccountable institution, and its relationship with the American people depends on a high level of trust, and incidents like this puncture that trust. So President Trump is trying to make sure that anyone who serves at this institution has the trust of the American people.
Okay, so Bessent wants her prosecuted for mortgage fraud. Is this the cause that Trump needs to constitutionally remove her?
Now, I believe that it is. Now, remember, I'm speaking as a non-lawyer. First, let me say I think Scott Bessent is among the president's very best appointees. He's a libertarian. He's a believer in cryptocurrency. He's a believer in gold. He's an outside-the-box thinker. He's an incredible negotiator. He's deeply involved in these tariff negotiations, which, as you know, culminated in the month of June, being the first month in 15 years that the U.S. government actually ran a surplus due to the billions of dollars that these new tariff deals are bringing in. So I think Bessent is a brilliant guy. Some say, oh, he used to work for George Soros. Yes, before Soros was in politics, he worked as a money manager, and he made billions of dollars for George Soros. That's the kind of guy I want managing U.S. money. That's the kind of guy I want managing our money. He's completely loyal to the president. His service to Soros is before Soros was ever involved in politics. No one, I think, has been more loyal to the president or more effective on behalf of the president's agenda. But the instance that he refers to, claiming that her home in Ann Arbor, Michigan, was her principal residence, and then just 2 weeks later saying that her home outside of Atlanta was her principal residence. This is textbook mortgage fraud. It's not just her, though, Gary. The key thing to understand is thousands of other people have been charged with this crime and will be charged with this crime. We just know about her because it's famous. And in asking for an audit of the Fed, who does Scott Bessent sound like? I think he sounds like Ron Paul, who's been calling for this for as long as I've known him. And he's absolutely right. These are unaccountable private bankers managing our economy. And the reason that this is important, it's not just Lisa Cook's seat. It is the fact that if she is removed for cause, which I believe the president has the authority to do, and which I believe the courts will uphold, because she clearly intends to challenge that, it would shift the balance on the Board of Governors from 5-4.
Preserving the health of our country.
It would shift the balance on the Board of Governors from 5-4 against an interest rate cut to 5-4 in favor of an interest rate cut. Now, the reason this is important is because the Federal Reserve is supposed to use two things to measure whether interest rates should be cut. the inflation rate and the unemployment rate. Well, right now, today, those two measures are either at the same level or substantially lower than they were the last 4 times the Federal Reserve cut interest rates on the American people. That would lead you to believe that they cut rates initially to try to help Joe Biden. Then they cut rates to try to help Kamala Harris. Didn't work. Now they don't want to cut rates because they're afraid it will help create a Trump boom economy. And if you combine it with the largest tax cut in American history that was embodied in the Big Beautiful Bill, and the fact that 88% of those in America who are receiving Social Security benefits will pay no tax on those benefits, plus doing away with the tax on tips, plus a lot of the regulatory cuts, this economy will take off like never before. Economy's already strong, contrary to what all those pointy-head, expert, intellectual establishment economists in Washington said. Oh, inflation will soar, unemployment will be out of control, the stock market will crash if Trump insists on better tariff deals. Gary, we have a record Dow margin right now. The dollar remains strong, inflation remains low, the economy's in good shape, but it will be in even better shape if we get an interest rate cut.
Well, somebody who's not in good shape is Nancy Pelosi. She's panicking about Fed independence. Let's watch her response and get your reaction.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of one of the bedrock principles of our economy, the independence of the Federal Reserve Board. For more than a century, the Federal Reserve has served as a cornerstone of the economic system of our country, tasked with safeguarding price stability, maximizing employment, preserving the health of our country, independent from political pressure, insulated from partisanship, and rooted in data and principle. Any of us who had economics in college or beyond knows that independence of the Fed is essential to the respect that our country commands in terms of our own economy throughout the world. The chairman of the Fed is the chair of the central bank, serves as a chair of the central banks globally, and it can't be a party hack.
Now, Roger, you tweeted, have another drink, you boozed up old witch. Beyond the humor, what's really at stake with Federal Reserve independence?
Well, Gary, I'm sorry for mincing words there and saying what I really thought. Look, she's absolutely right. Jerome Powell's not an economist. He's a lawyer to begin with. He's the one acting politically. She's absolutely right. They're supposed to be acting on the basis of the data, but they're not. They're acting politically. It's Jerome Powell who's acting politically by refusing to cut interest rates, despite the fact that the inflation rate and the unemployment rate would certainly merit it based on recent history. What's even more troubling to me, Gary, is the $2.5 billion renovation that's taking place on Jerome Powell's already palatial headquarters on Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. Now, Donald Trump has been in the construction business his entire life, as was his father, Bill Pulte, another one of the standout appointees, the head of the Federal Housing Finance Administration, comes from a long line of home builders, people in the construction industry. It's virtually impossible to figure out how they are spending $2.5 billion. But in his sworn testimony before the Senate, Chairman Jerome Powell said, there are no private elevators for the Fed board governors. There's not a private dining room for the federal board governors. There's no new marble, there are no new fountains, and there's no lavish roof garden. Gary, you can go online and see the approved construction plan. It includes all of those things, which means he lied under oath to Congress. But beyond that, today, that $2.5 billion represents a 70% cost overrun. So it's almost impossible to figure out how they can spend $2.5 billion while the average American can't get an interest rate cut to pay down their credit cards or to buy a home or to buy a car.
Well, we're looking at the footage here when President Trump made that revelation that you got, $3.1 billion cost overrun here at the Fed. totally catching him off guard, forcing his way in because he's the frickin' president of the United States. He can go ahead and do that. Now, Caroline Levitt just posted this 4 hours ago. She says, Powell's epiphany. Fed chair admits Trump was right about tariffs and inflation, but the Atlantic claims that Trump could achieve full-blown takeover of the Federal Reserve. I'm not against that. Isn't that exactly what the Constitution requires? Elected control over our money?
I actually have a much, much better idea. I think that the Federal Reserve Act should be completely and totally repealed. I don't. It's nowhere in our Constitution. It's nowhere in the Declaration of Independence. This is a private bank. So I would do away with it entirely. First, I'd audit it to see where the theft has been, but I think ultimately it should be repealed entirely right. This is why I'm fundamentally, after I'm a Trump Republican, I'm a Ron Paul Republican.
I love it. I love it. Roger, it's amazing. Now let's shift to Thailand. Supposed a U.S. ally. They're violating Trump's Cambodia ceasefire while buying submarines from China, fighter jets from Sweden. What does betrayal of a U.S. ally leaning on China tell you?
This is very, very deeply disturbing. Look, the president has an extraordinary record already. The greatest single title that history can bestow is that of peacemaker. So whether you look at the situation between India and Pakistan, the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the situation where we have a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, the situation where he ended one of the bloodiest and longest running wars between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, he reached an agreement and helped broker an agreement between Cambodia and Thailand. But it appears that the Thais are cheating. They are buying weapons from China. That wasn't part of the deal. There's some people who originally thought that this could devolve into a struggle in which we supported Thailand militarily, and the Chinese supported Cambodia. We don't want war. The point is Trump is against war. He's against killing. But I think we have betrayal here by one of our allies. And Donald Trump has extended himself. Gary, in my opinion, he already merits the Nobel Peace Prize, just based on what he's already done. He's going to get a result in the war between Russia and Ukraine. This is not a simple matter. He does know a couple things. I've read The Art of the Deal. I'm sure you have as well. You don't negotiate in public. That he does know. And this has many moving pieces because you have our European allies. They want to continue the war. They just don't want to pay for it. They want you and I to pay for it. You have Zelensky, who wants to stay on the gravy train, even though he can't account for where hundreds of millions of dollars that we've already given him have gone. And of course, you have the Russians who have their own internal political pressures at home. So it's not a simple situation. But I guarantee you the president works every day to bring peace to the region, and ultimately I think he will be successful.
Now, Cambodia's PM went to Xi Jinping for help with Thailand and got nothing but a photo op, no pressure on Thailand, no consequences. How does this expose China's real agenda in Southeast Asia?
Well, I think Americans have to wake up to the fact that it's not Russia who's our greatest problem in the modern world. It's China. We talked about this yesterday on my show. The Chinese have a very, very sophisticated spying operation out of Cuba, just 90 miles from our shore. Military experts I respect, like General Michael Flynn or Colonel John Mills, who just joined the State Department as Assistant Secretary for Cyber Terrorism. They all agree that there are currently Chinese defensive missiles on the island of Cuba, but with very, very small technological changes, those missiles could become offensive missiles. It's another example of the fact that China, who we seem to be blindly letting buy up half the country, as the Chinese buy prime ranch land, farmland, airports, ports, toll roads, harbors, and other facilities here in the United States. I think it's time for a federal law that makes it illegal for anybody who's Chinese, or fronting for the Chinese, because under their system, everything belongs to the party. from buying up our prime assets. You can go to an Agriculture Department report will tell you that the Chinese only control 370,000 acres in the United States. Gary, they have 390,000 acres in Oklahoma alone.
Insane.
So this is a huge issue. It's one that I hope the president will move aggressively on.
Well, what does China gain by destabilizing the region? I mean, Trump went in there, actually provided action. He said, listen, if you guys don't figure this out, we're going to tariff the shit out of both of you. So now Cambodia goes to China. China does nothing. It almost as if they want to see the region destabilized. And this is, in my opinion, a direct challenge to Trump's authority on the world stage. What do you say?
Well, let's recognize that Iran is a puppet state of China, that China is the #1 purchaser of Iranian oil. And the Chinese cannot be very happy about the fact that President Donald Trump, instead of getting sucked into a forever foreign war, decided instead to launch a surgical strike to go in and destroy their nuclear weapons development program, but withdraw very quickly, in which not a single American military person lost their life, which I think was, in the end, turned out to be the right decision. By the way, before he decided, like many others, I questioned whether it was the right thing to do. But now that I see what he saw, and I saw the successful consequences, and once he made the decision, I supported the president 100%, and in retrospect, he did the right thing. But the Chinese cannot be happy about this, so I do think that there is some triage here. There is some relationship to what's happening in that region going on in Asia.
Now, Thailand is still holding 18 Cambodian soldiers captive while pretending to honor Trump's peace deal. I mean, why would a U.S. ally openly defy the president of the United States like this? What do they have to gain?
I don't have an answer for that. I cannot tell you what is in their mind, but I'll tell you this. I've known Donald Trump for 50 years. He's not a man to be trifled with. He's not a man to be tested. He means what he says, and he says what he means. And if you give the president your word and you break your word, woe be unto you. This is not Joe Biden. We're not going to be the world's patsy anymore. You have a president who commands respect and perhaps fear among our adversaries, but respect among our allies around the world. They're messing with a very tough guy. Now, Gary, I worked for Richard Nixon. He was a tough guy. I was an assistant to Senator Bob Dole. He was also a very tough guy. But neither one of them is nearly as tough as Donald Trump. He's precisely the guy I want as the steward of our tax dollars, and he is the guy I want standing up for American interests around the world.
Now, I want to get your take on what's happening with respect to Chicago and President Trump seeing great success by rolling out the National Guard in Washington, D.C. It's now triggering Brandon Johnson. He's going out there with J.B. Pritzker. They're taking questions from the press. Do you think that President Trump's really going to bring the National Guard into Washington, D.C., into Chicago, or is this just a major troll to trigger people like Pritzker and Brandon Johnson?
I think the president cares about the lives of American citizens. I think he cares about the lives and the safety of the people of Chicago. While the elites in D.C. Are accusing him of some kind of power grab, or because they're calling him a fascist, that's not what the average citizens in D.C. are saying. The average citizens in D.C. are happy that they can walk to the post office and backs without fear of being hit in the head or robbed or raped or murdered or worse. So there's no question that there's been a deterioration of the situation in the city of Chicago. The president and the president alone has the authority to declare it an emergency. If he declares it an emergency, that would give him the authority to mobilize the National Guard. Unlike D.C., where he can federalize the D.C. police because of the unique nature of the District of Columbia, he cannot federalize the Chicago police. But Gary, the Chicago Police Department is down 1,600 officers because no one wants to go to work for the police because they know the politicians will not have their back. 223 911 calls last year went completely unanswered. Think about that. Someone's breaking into your home. Someone's attacking you with a knife. Someone's trying to steal your car. Or worse, you call the police and no one answers. Brandon Johnson, in all honesty, if this guy's IQ was 1 point lower, you'd have to water him like a plant. Recently, I saw him say, I'm not making this up, I swear to God, the rising crime problem in Chicago is all the fault of Richard Nixon, an American president who's been dead for over 30 years. It's all his fault. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. I do know that he's not up to the job of mayor, and then being propped up by J.B. Pritzker, a man who's so fat when he graduated from high school, he appeared on page 41, 42, and 43 of his high school yearbook. Last time he was in New York, he went to the subway. When he went through the turnstile, he had to go through 3 times.
Okay. Now, I saw the tweet and I laughed my ass off when I read that, and I thank you for bringing that up. You mentioned how Chicago, they're down how many police officers? 1,600. Okay, so in this video right here, we did some commentary on it yesterday, and Brandon Johnson is asked point blank 4 times by Joe Scarborough, would you like to see 4,000, 5,000 new police on the streets if the federal government could help you? And he never answered the question. I mean, I'm watching, this is MSNBC, and Scarborough is grilling him, and you have Brandon Johnson, his eyes are darting around, he's looking for the exit. I mean, it seems like common sense, if you're down that many police officers, that you would accept the help. Are they not accepting the help because it would prove that they're failures?
I think they're not accepting the help because they believe in the platform of the Democrat Socialists of America, as does the Ayatollah Zoran Mamdani, the Democrat candidate for mayor of New York City. First of all, cashless bail is a terrible idea. It has failed in New York. Therefore, J.B. Pritzker immediately adopted it in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago. 90% of those being let go with the promise that they will return without paying any cash bond are not returning for their trials. They get a postcard in the mail, although most of them don't have an address for where mail can actually be delivered. This is a joke. I watched that interview when he was asked, would you like to have 5,000 more cops on the street? Yeah. He said, no, the answer to our crime problem is more affordable housing. There's just no evidence that is the case. So when Donald Trump wants to bring order, which is, let's face it, the first responsibility of the President of the United States is to maintain order, they say that it's tyranny, that it's fascism. No, what it is common sense. And I think the people of Chicago, rather than rising up to object to the president's move, I think they would embrace it.
Well, we're seeing that. We're seeing that on the ground. People are calling out for President Trump's help from Chicago. Now, you mentioned that President Trump does have emergency powers to bring in the National Guard. What triggers that? What level does it have to get to? Apparently, it may already be there if President Trump's sitting in the Oval Office talking about this to the press. Where are we at?
Look, I'm not an attorney, but I think the president has to make a decision based on the fact that you have, I think it is estimated to be over 11,000 active gang members, and you have less than 1,000 active police officers at this point. My statistics could be slightly off, but I think I'm pretty close. The crime statistics in New York, in Chicago, they're manipulated so that they don't call the crimes what they really are. They downgrade the crimes so that in the FBI index, it makes it look like the cities are safer than they are. The president has the discretion to decide whether what's happening in Chicago is an emergency or not. And Gary, you know this because you live there. The crime problem is not just in the city. The crime problem is now spread to the suburbs, where it was previously fairly safe and fairly stable. So this is a national emergency. This is a local emergency. I think the president is within his bounds. Sure, J.B. Pritzker and the mayor would go to court, where I think they would lose. The American people voted for law and order in the last election. They voted against this crime spree, and Donald Trump is taking action.
Roger, it's your birthday, and I thank you for joining us. And having survived deep state persecution, what is your message to Americans who are fighting for constitutional government?
First of all, first and foremost, pray. Pray to God to preserve this nation. I prayed to God to preserve my life and to protect my family, and I was redeemed in the blood of the cross. Now,
Amen.
The Washington Monthly made fun of me for that. They said, "Oh, that's an act. That's some kind of a head fake or some kind of an appeal for sympathy." No, Jesus Christ can do anything. I am living proof of that. They put me through a Soviet-style show trial. Gary, it was really about pressuring me to testify falsely against President Donald Trump. They found no Russian collusion because none existed. They wanted to invent it. They wanted me to testify to things that just simply weren't true, that didn't happen, and I refused. It is only because of my faith and through the grace of God that I survived. And this nation will survive if the American people will remember to pray for our president and his family and our government and our country.
Roger, God bless you. God bless your family. God bless your wife. Looking forward to having you back in Chicago sometime soon. And I just want to wish you a very happy birthday today. I know you have a very busy schedule and you decided to join us on the Next News Network. So I'm honored that you chose us for your birthday. And make sure everybody in the comments wishes you a happy birthday. We look forward to having you back again.
Gary, folks can go to stonezone.com, stonezone.com. Keep up with everything I'm doing. Thanks so much for having me, and God bless you.
God bless you, too. So a happy 73rd birthday to Roger Stone, the man they couldn't silence, couldn't imprison, and couldn't break. Today, he's given us the greatest gift, exposing the constitutional crisis Trump has brilliantly engineered against the Federal Reserve and revealing Thailand's betrayal of American interests. Either Trump can fire Lisa Cook or the Fed is unconstitutional. There is no middle ground. Either Thailand honors our agreements or they're China's puppet. Pick a side. These are not just political battles. They are fights for whether America remains a constitutional republic or becomes a banker-run empire with fake allies. Roger Stone has spent 45 years, 700 campaigns fighting for American sovereignty. At 73, he is still dropping truth bombs the establishment fears. So you can support Roger by visiting stonezone.com, where you can get his signed books, or you can request even a personal message at cameo.com/Roger Stone. So happy birthday to an American patriot who proves truth remains the most dangerous weapon in politics. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. Now, this is not just another birthday celebration. It's a declaration of war against the banking cartel that's enslaved America since 1913. Roger Stone exposed the binary trap Trump has set. Either we can fire Lisa Cook, proving the president controls the executive branch, or the Fed's independence is revealed as unconstitutional tyranny. There is no escape from this logic. The same people who tried to destroy Stone with fake Russia charges now face their own very legal mortgage fraud evidence. Jerome Powell's $2.5 billion palace renovation, while Americans can't afford groceries, tells you everything about their priorities. Thailand stabbing us in the back while we broker peace proves the deep state operates globally. So here's the question. Should Trump completely abolish the Federal Reserve and return monetary control to Congress, where the Constitution demands it belongs? Drop your answer in the comments. And while you're fired up, check out our Next News merch shop. It's linked down below where you can wear your defiance proudly.